It was almost time. Almost time was a bit of a misnomer, of course. Almost time implied that there was a time limit, that there was a moment where everything would happen, and that there was a measurable time before or after. Time, as the man in the long red coat knew, was nowhere near that linear. It was, to quote an idiot, a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. And the Valeyard had plenty of it.
There is no circumstance,
he said to someone,
in which this does not turn out somehow more interesting than what came before.
But, of course, first he had to reach that point. That would be the tricky part, would it not?
So,
he said to the same no one / someone / whatever he had been talking to.
to begin,
He had a moral objection to exposition as a general rule, and he had a greater moral objection to explaining how the technology he was using worked. Not that there was anyone here to whom he could explain. If he had to hazard a guess, and if he had been in the presence of anyone in need of the explanation, he might have even said that his technology, by rights, did not work, and that the idea that it would work was ludicrous. But he was going to make it work anyway. Though how he was going to do so was anybody's guess.
I believe you'll find,
He said to the same no one.
that the answer is by the power of infinite bullshit.
The devices he was using were scattered throughout time, small and unassuming on the outside, and yet full of powerful dimensional energy, harvested from a dozen multiversal incursions and events, from a sojourn on the planet of the last universe to a dozen brief incursions across a dozen different timelines. He had met individuals across a dozen timelines, had adventures that he would have charitably described as alright, I guess.
That line
He said, once more to no one.
is meant to imply that I've been to other timelines. That's a hint. If you lot want me, you know how to ask. You and me in a fun fourth wall breaking adventure. What do you say?
That comment made no sense to anyone around him who might have been listening. Not that there was anyone listening to him that could be seen, and he did not seem to care. It was nearly done now. Even while he had been murdering the version of the Valeyard, who had been native to dimension EM22, or EM23 as it's known now, he had been harvesting power all the while. The few Plagiarons who had returned from blasting that iteration of Division to pieces and killing both the other Valeyard's Daleks and the other version of Tecteun had brought with them more pieces of the puzzle. Scans and pieces and elements all come together, rather like a jigsaw. If the jigsaw was made from discarded pieces of lives that had been destroyed, and if the image that one intended to make was horrible. Now, there was nothing left to do but to begin. The first device was primitive in nature by design, an essay in the craft, but it was there. He had built it to resemble a vindicator strapped into an arrangement that looked not unlike the Eiffel Tower.
Why a vindicator?
He asked to the same no one.
Why? Because it's a funny reference and the cover art will look hilarious.
Now this made no sense to anyone who may have been listening. The Valeyard stopped and looked at nothing intently for a moment.
You know, this will never do.
He said.
I know who I'm talking to, even if you don't.
He was still talking to no one. He turned and...
No, that's better. The Valeyard finished disposing of the first narrator in what one must assume was a fashion most unfit for family viewing. He did that, of course, because he didn't approve of his every aside to you. Yes, you out there, being met with commentary about him talking to no one. You and I both know who he was talking to. Now then, he told you. There is no time to waste, which is a pointless thing to say under the circumstances. There's plenty of time to waste. I could waste all the time there is. He laughed, cold, cruel, and full of malice. In fact, to quote a video game, he activated the machine. There were lights, flashing and flaring, and suddenly a blast of energy shot out into the sky. What happened next cannot be described by mortal tongues. There was light, yes, and sound too. A sound like a keening wail of agony. The shattering of glass, the wrenching of metal. But the simple wrongness of it would break even the most resilient minds. Even the Valeyard, who had been brought into being among such chaos, could not bear to watch that which he had unleashed. He looked away, grimacing at his own weakness, and then... And then it was over. All over bar the shouting. But you know the shouting. The story's not over. It doesn't want to be over. So to quote a good trickster, goodbye, Dwem. You had such potential. But then again, all good things must come to an end. Remember you soon.